Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about the topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, and their organizations adapt and thrive in an accelerating, exponentially changing world. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP of Business Engagement and Growth at the AICPA and CIMA, the largest global body of certified professional accountants in the world. Today, we're going to be talking about the acceleration of digital transformation, the journey to autonomous finance, and the Gartner CFO conference coming up in May. Joining me is Alex Bant, the Chief of Research and Practice Vice President for Finance at Gartner, Mallory Bulman, Senior Director and the CFO Advisory Leader at Gartner. Mallory and Alex, say hello to the audience.
Thanks for having
us back, Tom.
It's always good, and these guys actually have become quite good friends because they've been working with us for a while now and really helping us out. So it's wonderful to have you all back here talking about these topics that are really, really big to all of our members. So I want to talk about first, share some of the key insights and takeaways from your experience at our Future Finance Summit this past December in San Diego.
Yeah, I'll jump in first, Mallory. I guess a couple of things that really stood out to me, and thanks again, Tom, for having us and hosting us. Just a lovely event. I think everybody there was super excited to learn and lean in and share examples and kind of really figure out what the landscape needed to look like for 2025. Big things that I took away is just the massive amount of political uncertainty that we were going to need to navigate in the year ahead. So just the sessions on kind of policy and advocacy were super informative. All the CFOs are kind of, taking notes and thinking through that. I think the AI topic continues to accelerate. So we learned a lot about kind of top use cases around AI and the way people are thinking about the skill sets they're going to need. Other big kind of theme, and Tom, I know you guys had some sessions on this, but it almost permeated just all the breakfasts and lunches and kind of cocktail hours. And it was all around kind of keeping our teams pacing with the change, I'll call it, right? So, do we have the right skill sets? Are we positioning people effectively? Are they actually adapting and evolving to all the change that's coming through the finance transformations? So, I don't know, that's what stood out to me. Anything else, Mallory?
No, and again, I want to echo Alex's comment. It was just such a pleasure to join you in such an exciting group of CFOs. I think, the title of the session, The Future of Finance, really reflects how I felt we were focused for those couple of days together. We're looking at the future of finance. It's an exciting place to be. We have exciting challenges. We have exciting opportunities. But we also have a lot to learn. We're changing at a very rapid pace. Yeah. So I know that's a place Alex and I have been spending a ton of time talking to as many CFOs as possible, really trying to understand how they are leveraging AI, how they're leveraging really different kinds of talent on their team, and where they're putting their time. There's almost no one I speak to who has enough hours in the day. And so it's really making sure that we are tackling the challenges of the moment, the uncertainty of the moment, with the most robust set of tools we have available.
Yeah, and we were really pleased that there's a really sense of community that's been formed with this group. This was our fourth year, and you guys have been there several years now. It really feels like they all know each other. But I think more important, to your point, in a period of rapid change, these relationships are helping everyone learn faster and jump the experience curve effectively, right? Because you're talking to somebody who's doing one thing over there and another person's doing something with culture and someone else is working on their talent. And then together you get all the different angles that you need to think about. So we felt pretty good about that. And we'll put a link to the white paper because we also had AI listening in, giving us a draft of a white paper that we then edited with our Future Finance group. So, well, again, thank you guys for being there, being part of this community. Now, during the Future Finance Summit, we spent a bunch of time, as you said, Alex, with Mark Peterson, who's the head of our government relations team, talking about political and regulatory environment. This was just right after the election. And obviously a lot's even happened since then. You guys talk with hundreds of CFOs every month. So what are you seeing the CFOs focusing right now with the emerging executive orders and tariffs and all the excitement that's been going on for the last month or two?
Yeah, it's it's kind of interesting. So if we come into 2025, I think, by all measures, you look at kind of CFO sentiment about the year, like optimism was at like decade high, right? For CFOs, a lot of excitement around kind of reduced regulation, capital expenditure rules, kind of M&A environment, potential interest rates coming down, taxes, like super excited. I think as the year has progressed, there's just a lot of near-term uncertainty, I'll call it. I think CFOs remain optimistic around the environment for the long term under the administration. But in the near term, there's just a lot of kind of back and forth on tariffs and rates and that kind of thing. The two that we're tracking really specifically for our CFO clients right now are the tariff impacts and also reduced government spending and just kind of the direct and indirect effect on companies. And so CFO data from the last few weeks here at Gartner would say CFOs do view the near term as kind of less favorable as maybe they had thought heading into the year. And they're also starting to really get serious about cost contingency strategies. I know we're hearing more and more about that. CFOs just protecting their balance sheets in the near term to make sure that they're guarding against risks of potential decreases in GDP and inflation and things like that. And so it's a lot of near-term kind of risk avoidance and risk off kind of posture, Tom, with kind of excitement about the back half of the year and things to come. So it's kind of this short versus long game right now for CFOs, at least from what we're seeing. Yeah. But Mallory, you're talking to hundreds of CFOs. What are they kind of asking about specifically?
Like you said, uncertainty is sort of the key word right now. Lots of short and long-term planning, really thinking about what type of trade-offs do they need to be making, how do they need to be thinking about contingency planning, and then how are they communicating? How are they communicating with their board? How are they communicating with their leadership, all of the key stakeholders? All of that is really front of mind. The other piece is, not surprisingly, CFOs are really focused right now about how are they getting the most bang for their buck in those technology investments. We really want to sort of increase the conversations around what does it actually take to get value from AI. And they're really looking very critically at each of those investments and trying to figure out where they can, do more with less, how that can really be a reality.
Yeah. And what are you hearing for like your board priorities and some of those other pieces that are AI policies, all the other kind of regulatory legislative pieces that were at play, right? Because we're still seeing countries are doing their own stuff. You got the EU, you got UK, US, you got states stepping in on AI policy, ESG policy, all that. What are you seeing along those fronts?
It's a great question, Tom. So one thing that we do at Gartner is we regularly are doing pulse surveys on sort of the environment around CFOs. We want to know what pressures are they feeling. You asked specifically about the board. We do a regular pulse survey of boards of directors. The top two priorities for boards of directors don't really change all that much. They tend to be around technology and around workforce. But the specifics here are really changing. As we think about some of the policies related to AI use, a lot of those questions are really going to start coming up with the board. The biggest change year over year we saw was really around risk. Earlier in this year, towards the end of last year, we really attributed that growth, and it was big. It was about 85% year over year. We really attributed it to cybersecurity and really trying to unpack the cybersecurity risks. As we've moved into this new environment, risk has taken on so many other angles. We're starting to talk with folks, they're starting to talk with their boards about geopolitical risks. They're talking about risks in terms of exposure from their supply chain. All of those different multifaceted aspects of risk. And we're finding that CFOs are really wanting to make sure that they're ready to answer those questions, that they've done the contingency planning and that they've really thought through the various scenarios.
Yeah, that's wild. So it's funny because we recently did a session for our European group over in Eastern Europe where there's a whole bunch of GBS centers. Mm-hmm. And they had the equivalent of our U.S. future finance group over there. And there was probably about 30 people on the call. And to your point, AI was a big one, emerging workforce skills, another one, similar to what we saw at our Future Finance Summit. But geopolitics was a big one, and cybersecurity was both big. So, that's even more recent than our summit. And you're already seeing the shift in some of those issues, which is how we track it, right? With these, we got to pull those issues every maybe 6 months, and then we use that to drive whatever they want to talk about from that standpoint. So this is exciting because you're aligned with all the pieces that we're continuing to see as we go through that. And in fact, we just did our economic outlook survey probably a week or two ago. And to your point, the big jump we got in December peeled back. We actually jumped up to like 67% positive, best in 3 years by far. And then it pulled back to 47%, still the best in 3 years, but a 20% drop since the tariffs have showed up in the last couple of weeks.
That's
So
really interesting.
You can see that impact of uncertainty coming through. So we're like aligned perfectly with what you're talking about. So let's talk a little bit more about the. So what are the most crucial steps you're seeing CFOs take right now? I know you've weaved a few of them in, but what would you say the big ones that you guys are both seeing here?
Yeah, so our research is really coming down to 5 critical steps right now for CFOs. The first one we talked a little bit about is preparing scenarios for CEO and board conversations. We really want to be looking at the different options and the different ways things can play out. The second is outlining budget contingencies. The third is prioritizing tech investment opportunities. Like I said, this is a great time to take use and make use of AI, but it's not the peanut butter we're going to spread on everything. We really want to be optimizing. We want to determine the implications for our talent strategy of the things going on around us. We also, that word risk that we talked about, we want to assess the risks that we have related to our vendors and our suppliers.
Interesting. I mean, it's really fascinating because it feels like it's kind of the post-pandemic period all over again. Risk of inflation, all the uncertainty from coming out of the COVID piece. And it was just, it's like an interesting, I guess it's that big kind of uncertainty with a big giant exclamation mark that's making everybody kind of a little bit nervous, right? And I think, Alex, you put it well. It's a short-term nervousness, hoping for the long-term positivity, right, on the other side of this.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of the near-term impact on GDP, on inflation and interest rates that we're seeing week by week how those things materialize and manifest in the data, and that's impacting kind of the cost and scenarios that CFOs are running. And then we've got all this hope of an easier glide path with regulation and taxes and so forth that should pick up some of that slack in the back half of the year. So I think we're just going to kind of live in this choppy water operating environment for at least a quarter or two here until we get a little bit more clarity.
Well, this is a good time to wrap us up with the talking about the Gartner CFO conference that we're going to be excited to come and join you guys again with. It was fantastic the last couple of years. So, and give us the dates and so you're going to give us the highlights here, Alex. What's on deck here, and what are some of the exciting things you're going to be talking about?
Gosh, man, I could spend an hour probably going through everything we're excited about. So first and foremost, thank you very much, Tom. I know you're going to be on one of the panels with some of our CFOs on stage talking about kind of how to operate in this uncertain environment. So that'll be big. And then Mark Peterson's going to join us and run a similar kind of policy update, real time, what's going on in May and in the back half of the year. So I think that'll be great. And we'll get a bunch of CFOs engaged at the conference in that. Holistically, though, we're kind of thinking about it like this. So we've got our public sector track, Tom, and really we're still seeing a lot of public sector CFOs. It's the largest public sector CFO in the conference in the country coming together, and really we're helping kind of get the budgets right-sized and really kind of operate in this uncertain environment, drive trust as a leader, operate, with your team in this uncertainty. So a lot of sessions around that for our public sector finance leaders. On the private sector side, we're really expanding the conference this year, Tom, to talk about CFO as an enterprise leader, right? So we know more CFOs than ever are owning data analytics, they're owning risk management, they're owning cybersecurity, they're owning ESG, they're owning strategy, they're owning AI, they're owning, the list goes on. And so really a lot of the sessions are designed around how do you as a CFO create a delegation-ready leadership team that can run the finance transformation and operations so that you as a leader can spend time with the board, with investors, with business leaders to really kind of operate in this uncertain environment across all those different topical areas that we know CFOs either own or co-own in the enterprise now. So that's a big piece of it. Still continuing on this journey of autonomous finance too, Tom. So a lot of investment into ERP, technology road mapping, AI, digital skills, reconstituting processes to fit into a digital world, all that kind of stuff. And let me leave the best for last. Mallory, you're actually going to be doing our keynote address. You want to just give a highlight on what that's going to be?
No, thanks. Yeah, really looking forward to conference. We're really focused on the changing identity of us in finance and what does it really mean to be a finance leader in this next era, and how are we going to use this to solve the complex questions each of our organizations are really facing.
That's going to be so. Congratulations, Mallory. That's going to be very cool. We'll look forward to that. And Alex, this is just killer. You're covering like all the major pieces. And this new identity is exactly what we were kind of thinking about where this finance is going, right? It's been all of our research. So it's kind of neat to be saying, and I guess it segues. I mean, you predicted we were in the fifth industrial revolution, Alex, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I would say there's no question we're in the fifth industrial revolution powered by Chat GPT, right? It just seems that's got to be the thing that's accelerated everything. So I think you're super on point. The other thing we can share with you, actually, at the AICPA, we just did a service for government employees in finance who might be getting displaced to give them a job board. So we can send you that.
Oh, cool.
If you want to share that among your community, it's a good one to potentially help them all get jobs.
Yeah. And I know the CFOs that we're still working with across the federal space are still fighting hard out there to kind of justify the budgets and spend and that kind of thing. So it's kind of an ongoing twofold thing. So I love this displacement element too, Tom. And yeah, we'd love to take a look at that.
Yeah, hopefully they can avoid that, but just in case, right? We want to be ready. But so that's a big. I've been watching some of the previews you guys send out, the autonomous finance developments, and I love how you're talking about the reshaping of the workforce for the CFO office, right? With the gig work. I mean, you're just putting, what'd you call it? You have citizen developers and digitally savvy, along with core finance and those not digital savvy, and talking about how that mix is going to change. I think that's going to be a big topic for all of us to keep track of. It's pretty wild. And you covered some of that at the summit.
Yeah, and I don't want to steal Mallory's thunder, but she's talking about in this new identity, Tom, of basically, well, how do you talk about your team as a leader in finance to the rest of the organization, right? Yeah. And so a lot of, it's the difference, Mallory. Yeah, I'm going to steal your thunder now. It's basically like, if you're a runner by psychology, right? Not just I run 3 days a week, right? And so if you're going to talk about kind of the identity of yourself and your team in the future of finance, we need a different talk track and narrative for how we think about all of the different combinations of talent and how they work across the enterprise. So anyway, it's gonna be cool. We're excited about it.
And we gotta get rid of those past stereotypes that we know take a long time for them to die with throughout your organization. So
it's interesting, Tom. I think, one thing I've been hearing from a lot of CFOs is, they're looking at so many parts of their job and saying, I can't believe I'm still doing this. And we're hoping that really embracing this identity, really setting a vision, permissions them a little bit to let go of some of those things that they don't need to be doing and really put their time towards helping to guide their organizations through, incredible uncertainty. And so the future is exciting for finance, and hopefully, our time at conference together, we can really set a vision for that and really get into some of the strategies, the people strategies, the technological strategies, the process strategies that it's going to take to get us there.
It's going to be amazing. It couldn't come at a better time. So this is perfect. It's May 20th and 21st at National Harbor in Maryland at the Gaylord. And by the way, thank you guys so much for being back on the show again. So you can follow Mallory and Alex on LinkedIn at Gartner. And you can go on Twitter at @Gartner_Inc. to follow them there as well. And for my audience, thank you guys for being here with us, and to be back here on the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern. We'll see you then. And Mallory and Alex, thanks so much for coming back on again.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Good to see you, Tom. Thanks.